Everyone loves the famous fried chicken from KFC, but very few know the true story behind it. But before I explain any further, welcome to Tales of Titans, the place where business and history come to life. So, let's dive into the famous story of Harland David Sanders and KFC. Now, Harland David Sanders had quite a tough childhood. He was born on September 9th, 1890, near Henryville, Indiana. He wasn't an only child. He had two younger siblings. His dad, Wilbur David Sanders, only worked part-time doing odd jobs for local farmers, and his mom, Margaret Ann, stayed at home to look after the kids. Things got really hard for young Harland when his dad suddenly passed away. This happened one summer afternoon in 1895. His dad came home with a fever and died the same day. Harland was just 6 years old. After that, his mom had to start working at a tomato canning factory to make ends meet, and Harland had to step up big time. He looked after his little brother and sister at home while his mom was at work. This part of his life was super important. It was then that everyone started to notice Harland's natural talent for cooking. Even as a little boy, he was already showing skills in the kitchen. It's like all these tough times helped him become the great chef he was known to be. But then his mom got married again, and his new stepdad wasn't kind to him at all. So, Sanders decided he had to leave home. He was really brave and even changed his birth date so he could join the U.S. Army, even though he was only 15. He did his whole service time and ended up in Cuba. After returning, life wasn't easy for Sanders after that. He tried all sorts of jobs. He was a steamboat pilot, worked in insurance, and even tried his hand at farming, but nothing seemed to stick. Finally, he got a steady job working as a fireman for the U.S. Railway Company. That's when things started to change for him. Back in 1908, after settling down with a stable income, he married Josephine King. Together, they had 3 kids, a son, Harland Jr., who sadly passed away young, and 2 daughters, Mildred and Margaret. Things took a turn, though. Harland lost his job because he didn't follow orders well, and that led to Josephine leaving him and taking the kids back to her parents. Her brother even sent Harland a letter saying it was a mistake for her to marry someone like him, someone who couldn't keep a job. By the time he was 40, he had tried his hand at all sorts of jobs. He even attempted to study law, but never finished. And here he was, in his 40s, with just a little money saved up. Harland was in a tough spot, feeling like he hadn't made his mark on the world and certainly not living a life of comfort or luxury. But then things started to change. Harland bought a service station, a motel, and a cafe in Corbin, Kentucky near the Tennessee border. He was smart about it, choosing a spot where people traveling from the north to places like Florida would pass by. It was the perfect location for a steady stream of customers. Without a proper restaurant, Colonel Sanders, as he was later known, started serving meals in his living quarters. He cooked up chicken, country ham, steaks, and more right in his kitchen. Before long, his place, dubbed Kentucky Fried Chicken of Harland Sanders, was a hit in Kentucky. People loved his food, especially the unique seasoning he made from 11 different spices. Life was finally looking up for Harland. Now, Harland was really smart and got himself a pressure cooker when they were just hitting the market. This cooker was a game changer. It cut down chicken cooking time from 30 minutes to just 9 minutes. This meant he could serve his customers way faster and take more orders. Now, here's a cool part of the story. In 1935, the governor of Kentucky, Ruby Laffoon, gave Harland a big honor. He was named a Kentucky Colonel for his awesome contributions to the state. People were all over his chicken, calling it the national dish of Kentucky. Harland knew he had to think bigger, so in 1937 he opened Sanders Court and Cafe. But unlike fast food joints like McDonald's, his place took a bit longer to prepare food, around 10 to 15 minutes per order. But life always has its ups and downs, and the same goes for Harland. He divorced his wife Josephine in 1947, and 2 years later married his secretary Claudia. Also in 1949, he was honored as a Kentucky Colonel again, this time by Lieutenant Governor Lawrence Weatherby, and Harland really embraced being a colonel. That's when he decided to grow a mustache and goatee and started wearing a white suit and string tie, the look you see in KFC logos today. His restaurant was a hit, and he was doing better than ever. Sure, there were hiccups along the way, like supplier issues and even his motel burning down once. But it was rebuilt quickly, and he got back on track with some help from the state government, who loved his fried chicken. In 1952, Sanders shared his special chicken recipe with Pete Harmon, a restaurant owner in Utah. Harmon later thought of the chicken bucket idea. Sanders made this deal for a small payment for every chicken sold. But then, in 1955, when he was 65 years old, things took a bad turn. The highway near his business got moved. Interstate 75 bypassed his restaurant in Corbin, and his business suffered big time. He had to sell his place for just $75,000 to clear his debts. At 66, he was almost broke, living on a small Social Security check of $105 and some savings. Eventually, he moved to Shelbyville, Kentucky, trying to start anew. But hey, after some thinking, he figured out that he could actually make money by selling his special recipe to other places to eat. So, with nothing really to lose, he grabbed his mix of spices and that pressure cooker of his and hopped into his 1946 Ford. Then off he went, traveling all around the U.S. to share his secret with others. Now, when most folks would be kicking back and thinking about retirement, Sanders was out there really hitting the road. He'd actually sleep in his car a lot of the time while he was traveling across the country. And get this, he'd show up at different restaurants, cook his special chicken right there for the staff, and then stick around for a few days, whipping up batches for the customers. If people liked it and it got popular, his chicken would become a regular item on their menu. By 1964, he was already 73, and running such a huge business was really wearing him out. So he decided to sell most of his franchise. But guess what? He still kept some parts like Canada, England, and a few states in the U.S. like Florida, Utah, and Montana because they were already with other owners. He sold it to this former state governor, John Y. Brown, and a businessman named Jack Massey. They paid him $2 million. But later on, Sanders felt he got way less than he should have, especially when KFC's values skyrocketed. But here's the cool part. Sanders didn't just walk away. He stayed on the payroll, making sure everything was top-notch quality-wise, and he also became the face of KFC around the world. He was this living, breathing symbol of the brand, sort of like Ronald McDonald, but real. He had this unique charm and style with his look and the way he talked. He didn't just stop at ads and TV appearances, he even had small roles in a couple of movies. But aside from all this, Colonel Sanders was always known for his straightforward attitude, especially when it came to the quality of his food. He had a secret recipe for his chicken, which was so guarded that it was said to be locked away in a vault in Kentucky. The ingredients were so secretive that 2 different suppliers were used, with each knowing only a part of the recipe. In 1983, William Poundstone, in his book Big Secrets, claimed that he analyzed the chicken's coating mix and found only 4 ingredients: flour, salt, pepper, and MSG. But it's unclear if this was accurate or if the recipe has changed over time or if more ingredients are added during cooking. Colonel Sanders himself was upset when KFC simplified his gravy recipe, calling the new version wallpaper paste. Then, KFC went global, opening its first Australian outlet in Guildford, New South Wales in 1968, even before McDonald's. Now, KFC has more than 23,000 outlets in at least 135 countries, including over 640 in Australia. The company's ownership has changed hands several times. It was sold to Hublin in 1971, then acquired by R.J. Reynolds in 1982, and finally sold to PepsiCo in 1986. In 1991, KFC, which used to be called Kentucky Fried Chicken, changed its name. Kyle Craig, the president of the company in the U.S., said they did this because they didn't want people to think their food was unhealthy just because it had fried in the name. They even added healthier options to their menu. But you know, their original recipe chicken is still the main thing people love there. It's so popular that KFC is one of the top 10 biggest fast food chains in the world. But the story doesn't end there. Back in 2002, Yum Brands bought KFC. Now, they're not just about KFC though. They also own Pizza Hut and Taco Bell. The guy in charge of Yum Brands is David C. Novak, serving as both chairman and CEO. It's pretty impressive. They run over 25,000 restaurants in more than 145 countries. What they really like doing is mixing brands together, like selling different types of food at one place. And guess how many people work for them? More than 34,000. And in 2022, they made a whopping $1.33 billion in net income. But hey, let us know your thoughts in the comments down below. Be sure to leave a like and subscribe for more amazing content. And as always, I'll see you in the next one. Peace!